change. So it often gets confused, I think, which is a shame because there's a lot in a name. Thanks to Shakespeare, we all can appreciate that when it comes to a rose. But like there is a significant power to what somebody's name is. And so when you get the chance to choose your own, like for a company or for a business or an identity that you have, there's a lot of meaning underneath that kind of buoys it up, right? So, you know, in actual fact, the Dr. Zoolittle thing came to me almost in a dream. Like it was just like I didn't sit down for hours and think, oh, what should I be called? Like it just was like, that's your name. Like, woo, you are Dr. And I was like, ooh, this really does work for me, right? So let's start at the beginning. Do you want me to tell this story? Like I don't want to.
Yeah, tell the story because. So I didn't know where your Dr. Zoolittle came from until literally the other day, and I don't know how we've gone this long without knowing. Like, yeah. So yeah, tell the story about where it came from.
Well, I mean, okay, so back in time, let's just rewind quickly. I won't give like the entire life journey of my story, but like growing up, all I wanted to, like literally all I wanted to do was be one of the famous five and talk to animals. And anyone who grew up in England knows Enid Blyton and the Famous Five. And so I just wanted to be a kid with my besties going out on adventures and solving mysteries kind of thing. So that was that adventure thing. But talk to animals. Like they didn't talk to animals, but the other half of me was all I want to do is talk to animals and bring something of value to their life. Make them happy, be their friend, serve them, give them what they need. What is it that's missing from your life? How can I provide that for you? Honestly, that entire, like, I can't even remember a memory prior to thinking those things. It's so wedded to my identity that it literally can't be unspooled or unraveled. It's like the other strand of my DNA is this thing. So Dr. Dolittle, like the old school Rex Harrison movie, right? And then more recently, Eddie Murphy, and more recently, Ant-Man or whatever his name is, Downey Jr. So his thing is I'm talking to the animals. Like that was his magic skill. Like he would talk to the animals and they would tell him this is wrong with me and he'd go, oh, let me go fix that for you. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So he was my idol, my literary idol of growing up. And then of course he's working with a whole spectrum of species. And I've always wanted to work with the whole spectrum of species, right? It's really easy to work with domestics because they don't run away from you. Like it's like, that's probably a bit prejudiced, but like it's like you don't have to be smart to work with domestics, right? Because they're just gonna love you anyway, right? So, but it's like a step up. Can you work with a wild animal? Can you bridge that divide first of all and build trust? And so there's a challenge in there that there isn't with your domestics, right? And then there's just the sheer diversity, right? There's just phenomenal spectrum of, so it opens up this world of discovery and investigation and who are all these different, and what are their different strategies for life and what are their different connections to how they get meaning and what's valuable to them and their social networking and their learning process and the whole thing. Like literally I spent my entire life reading books about them and watching them and going out and see them because I just want to know that stuff so that then I can ask them that question, what is it I can do for you? How can I help you? And so Dr. Dolittle was the role model. Dr. Zoolittle is the dream because it's doing, I talk to the animals, I trust the animals, they trust me, we are literally friends. And they can say, hey, I need help with this thing here. And I go, okay, I get that. You've just explained that through your body language from the way that we've connected with this, with a test that I've given you, you show me the answer to what it is you need. So we've communicated in very real terms, observable, replicatable, justifiable, scientific, and then I can say, here it is. I'll bring you that solution. I'll bring you that healing thing. I'll bring you that toy. I'll give you a best friend. We'll go on an adventure together. Do you want some more sunshine? Like, what is it that, and so their life can now be enriched or more satisfying, the quality of life. So again, the welfare scientist, how are they doing? Let's bring them up to the level that where it's not just surviving, but it's thriving. It's full of joy. It's the satisfaction of, today's going to be awesome kind of thing. I want every animal to wake up in the morning and go, yes, today's going to be awesome, right? Because the fun is just going to roll out in front of me like a red carpet and I'm going to go play and do things and I'll be safe and my friends are going to be there and I won't be sick and limited and suffering, right? That's Dr. Zoolittle. So it's got really not a lot to do with being a vet, because I'm not a vet. And this is the really big message that I want everyone to know. And I say it everywhere. Like so many of my things preface with, I'm not a vet, right? However, what I can help you with is this stuff, right? So the doctor at the front is by no means trying to piggyback onto a medical thing of like, here's my broken one, can you fix it? Well, no, actually I can't, because I'm not really qualified to do that. What I can do is build you a better one from the start. I can help you. I can build that connection with your animal if there are problems and identify that. And we can, but really we want to be doing proactive. It's about the love and the care that you have for them up front, and the connection, the relationship that strengthens everything. So that's...
And this really is a rant that I know really rubs you the wrong way when people mistake you for a medical doctor, and you're like, no, focus more on the Zoolittle part than the
doctor part.
Yeah, exactly. So there tends to be, it's not just the fact that people think that you're a vet that's the problem. It's the kind of approach that, let's take a step back. You're the only longevity zoologist that any of us know of. Like, we truly don't know if there's anyone else out there. We think not. So there's that, which means that it's not just like, oh, there's no one else with this title. It's like, there's no one else really doing what you're doing, which is focusing on extending health span, lifespan from a preventative approach, and looking at the big picture, not just troubleshooting these little, like, I mean, I shouldn't say little, sometimes they're big, but not troubleshooting the breakdown necessarily, looking at the breakdowns that happen, but coming at it then from a wellness perspective, what we might call healthcare versus sick care on the human side. So when people think that you're a holistic vet, you're still, we say this all the time, like in pocket coaching, we say, you might be asking the wrong questions. If you are asking for an herb to fix a problem, and that's what you're focused on, you're missing the bigger picture of why is this problem happening, right? And it's the same thing where if people are coming at it saying, oh, great, like you're looking at more, that's awesome. You're looking at it at the animal as a whole, but we're trying to troubleshoot a problem. You're like, I'm not your girl. But people have a hard time conceptualizing that because there's no one else doing it. So like, okay, break that apart. So what's the difference then in terms of like who should be talking to you, who should be getting your support versus someone going to a holistic vet?
Well, everybody who loves their pet, right? Because it's like, what is it like? I don't know what it's like, because there isn't an equivalent and there is not a longevity zoologist. Because, okay, so longevity zoologist and cognitive ethologist, right? So these is my, and for the longest time, cognitive ethology was my thing. So behavioral neuroscience of animals for their welfare on a holistic scale, so you can look at neuroscience microscopically, like you can look at gated channels in the connections of the neurons, and you could, right, but that's not what I was talking about. It's behavioral neuroscience, the outworking of the behavior of the animal, what it is they want, how can we improve their life, what is it that they value. So everything is welfare oriented for the whole animal, seeing them as an individual of intrinsic worth, requiring our assistance to improve their life. Cognitive ethology. Right? So I'm looking after what's going on in here, in the internal environment of the animal. Where are they stressed, worried, afraid, scared, lonely, tired, not necessarily tired, but like all the emotional componentry, right? How can I, my question was always, how can I remove those negative emotions, right? And replace them with, like I said, the rolling out that red carpet of joy for them every single morning with positive emotions and thriving. And the reason that I stepped into longevity zoology was because I saw a massive hole, right, in the people who were providing the healthcare for them weren't able to do the same thing. They were giving them some drugs or some kind of therapy or some kind of something or other that was alleviating symptoms, but it wasn't curing them. It wasn't clearing the way for that full freedom that I figured that they deserved. And so I was like, I don't care what the answer is. I'm going to go find out what it is, and I'm going to bring that into it so I can now offer them fullness of joy, psychologically, internal world, social connections, right? And I can offer them fullness of health right, on the physical body side, so they don't break. And when a threat comes, because a threat always comes, right, they can bounce it off, right? It's like having a shield, like a magical superhero shield. It's like, boom, that disease isn't going to get me, that aging isn't going to get me, that suffering isn't going to get me, because I've built my biology up to do that. So literally anyone who loves their pet enough to consider them a family member, which is obviously everyone in our community, because pet and parent just talks about family in the title, right? That's who I'm serving, because I assume as a pet parent that that's what you want for your pet, that they don't actually get sick, that they don't suffer premature aging, that they don't have decline, that they're not limited in their joy, and that their behaviors and things are all free and their emotions are good as well. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at this side or this side, I can help you, right? And we're going to do it before there's a problem, because there are, sad to say, beautiful bears and big cats and all these amazing creatures who've been rescued from bad circumstances, that are in sanctuaries and things like, and they're pacing around and they're banging their heads against brick walls, they're pulling out their fur, they are broken. And it absolutely breaks my heart. And we don't have to go to there before we undo the damage. If I can help them before they go into that, right, protect them from that by giving them the loving home and the things, the stimulation that they need and whatever, right? And that's what you're doing as a pet parent. You're buying them toys. You're going out and playing together. You're doing all of that preventatively. So why aren't you doing it for their health preventatively? So that's what Dr. Zulidor's about on the longevity zoologist side, is let's preventatively get the body as happy as you're wanting their mind to be.
So the preventative piece is really key here, right? Like that word, you've used that word so many times. Like that is really the key, is you're trying to reach people before their pets have an issue, a health
ideally,
or physical.
Yeah, because that way you don't have suffering. It's all about getting rid of suffering, right? And living joyfully. So
for someone who has just adopted a puppy or a kitten, like this is like your ideal. You're like, oh my God, I can like see you lighting up even just as I say that. You're like, yes, bring them to me. Like, let's set them up for a life of happiness and wellness and all of the things. But on the flip side, for someone who their pet isn't a baby,
yeah,
whether or not they're dealing with some kind of health. Okay, let's say someone's pet is dealing with a health concern. What kind of support are you going to give them that's different from the vet? Because this is where I think people get confused, because there's no other model. I think it's easier for people to understand, like, oh yeah, preventative, like there's no one else. If I adopt a puppy or kitten, there's no one else that's going to set them up for a life of success than you. So, okay, that makes sense. But if I'm not that person and I meet you later, what does that look like? And how does that person know whether you're going to be able to provide the best support, or their vet, or is it both?
Right. I truly believe it's both. Because we can work alongside, whether it's a holistic vet or a regular vet. I'm working alongside, because what the vet is going to be doing is treating that situation that's broken, whatever's wrong, whatever the lump or bump or wound or funny readings on your heart levels or whatever it happens to be, that's something's gone wrong in the biology, and we now have symptoms and some degree of suffering. Your vet is going to help you with that, and your holistic vet is going to help you with that, dare I say it, far more effectively, because they're going to go to the root cause, and they're going to give you natural things that work with the body rather than fight against the body and a bunch of things, right? So it's much easier for me to work alongside a holistic vet, because our ideologies are aligned and our practices are aligned, our science is aligned. However, it can still be a regular vet. Now, the regular vet any vet is going to have the ability to prescribe, to diagnose, to do tests, to interpret those tests, and do that very itty-bitty medical thing on that very specific scenario, right? But very rarely do they look at the big picture. Very rarely are they trained in nutrition. Very rarely are they trained in behavior. Not once, as far as I can understand, they trained in behavioral neuroscience and cognitive ethology. So there's all of that stuff that's not on their table or their toolkit, bless them, amazing people as they are, right? They've trained in that way. Just like doing those couple of things are not in my toolkit, because that's not what I trained in. But you bring two people together with the same ideology, the same desired outcome of setting that animal free, right? And we work together beautifully. And I can say, hey, let's focus on what your vet said here and help get that sorted out. Let me give you some ideas that will support that, to accelerate that, to do that, more effectively or whatever. And then while that's going on, what we can also be doing is building here. And let's use those 7 pillars to build up that foundation, so that never happens again. This will be the one and only time that they suffer from this particular thing. So it's building a structure underneath, or a life raft underneath, that lifts you up so that you never submerge into that sea of disease again, right? And it's all encompassing, because it's a 360 thing, right? It's every aspect of your health, welfare, and longevity. And then if you need the behavioral and the cognitive and the emotional enrichment and the stimulation and all of the relational anthrozoology components, right, that come from the other side of who I am, then I can bring all of that in as well. So there's literally no stone left unturned. So it's a very collaborative process. And I love working alongside the holistic vets.
So it's really a difference between a micro focus, which is what the holistic vets will do. This is the problem. We're focused on it. We're going to try to bring it back into balance. And you're taking a macro focus. You're looking at the whole animal's wellness, physical, mental, emotional, and taking the strategies, the tools that you're giving people are to support the whole animal, like you said, to lift it up, as opposed to just the little piece. And so that makes sense that both come together. Can you give an example, like an example of some kind of symptom or disease process, and how the holistic vet might support versus how you would support? Like, what's something that you see commonly, or a client that you're working with now, and what their vet does versus what you do? I mean, we can use my pet's an example for what you did for them if you want to, if one doesn't come to mind.
Okay, no, do that, because then we can both add stuff into it, right?
So, my gosh, so both, it was for Birdie and for Peanut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about Peanut. Well, let's talk about Birdie. Someone the other day was like, wait, you have 2 dogs? You only ever talk about Peanut.
Okay, poor Birdie never gets on camera. Just
well, I can't really pick up Birdie and like love on her on the camera, because she can't come up the spiral staircase. Anyway, okay, so Birdie, this was actually like originally the first, like our first kind of deep dive with Birdie. So I adopted her when she was a rescue. She was so tiny. And from day one, she had terrible GI issues. I mean, she was having diarrhea 9 times a day, every single day for 6 months, her first 6 months of life. And we lived a few blocks from the vet, and thankfully I got pet insurance the day I adopted her, because we were at the vet every single week, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything at all. I mean, it was deworming, deparasiting, special prescription, food. It was like everything they had in their toolkit, and it made no difference at all. And so that was when we connected, and I was like, what on earth can I do? Because we run out of options, and she's only 6 months old. And you took a very different approach, if you want to kind of share that.
I think the first thing I asked you was, what are you feeding? Like, what's her diet? Do you want to fess your sins?
Yeah, well, so I was giving her what the vet had prescribed, which is a prescription kibble, which was supposed to be for GI problems. And I had never heard of species appropriate nutrition. I had never heard of that before. Raw. Oh no, I never heard of people feeding their dogs raw. I heard of like cooked meat and veg before, but I never heard of raw. Like, that blew my mind. It's like, you mean like raw? Like just straight meat? And what's so interesting about those two things is The vet was focused on, this is the problem. The problem is the diarrhea. Something's going on in her gut. Let's give her a prescription food that's supposed to help the gut. And you said, no, let's give her food that's supposed to nourish her as a dog. Like, just that alone is such a different, like, wait a second.
Yeah, let's look not at the diarrhea. Let's look at what her body's supposed to do and why it isn't doing that.
Yeah.
What does the body need? And if she's in this chronically weakened and malnourished state, which she will be from having diarrhea consistently, because when's the absorption and assimilation going to happen? It's just everything's fast tracking straight out of the body. So she's probably that classic skinny fat thing, or not even that. No, that wouldn't be, but just that super malnourished. So how can her immune system be supporting her getting well if she's not feeding her cells? So it's like, okay, well, we need to slow that process down and make sure that there's nourishment going in. So at the base level, her immune system can start to do what it needs to do, and the gut can start to absorb and assimilate. So we've got nutrients going into the body. Because if you don't have that, you have highly depleted cells that are functioning on 10%, and you will always live significantly under par. And I bet you saw massive behavioral changes as she started to get well, as she had the energy and the spark to then engage with life.
It was actually, so she's always been like crazy, like when she was a puppy, like just sprinting around, so excited all the time. And I actually think it was kind of the opposite. She like kind of chilled a little bit, which also makes sense because she wasn't getting the nourishment. And so that's what our bodies are designed to do. If we can't get the nourishment, we're always kind of looking for it and we're always on high alert for it. Versus when we have it, we kind of chill.
Yeah, there's been a number of patients recently that I've spoken to who, for whatever reason, there's a couple of different reasons, but the animal wasn't getting sufficient nutrients. So it might have been it was the wrong food. It might have been that the portion size was too small. It might have been the meal frequency was not quite optimized for that species, right? But whatever it is, and so it creates a desperation. I must go and get some more food. So cortisol's up here, which then has an entire different hormonal cascade. You're switching into your sympathetic autonomic nervous system overdrive. Your behavior is going to be crazy. There's going to be all kinds of GI problems because the cortisol's overdoing. Like it, and it's just like, okay, let's just tweak this little tiny thing right back at the very beginning of the process. Make sure they've got the nutrients coming into their body. When that happens, the whole thing just changes in 48 hours. Like it's super quick.
Well, I think that's a really unique aspect and outcome of the kind of support that you provide. And that is you get benefits that you weren't even thinking about, or you didn't even realize there was an issue. You didn't realize that something else could change. And then you because you're not just focused on that one little problem, you're focused on supporting the whole body. Not only does that problem improve or go away, but because the whole body is improving, you see benefits to other areas of physical health, mental health, kind of all of the things in one, because everything is so connected. You can't parse that out.
Yeah, the motivation is changing, right? It's no longer in famine, I must seek food in order to survive. So there's that cornered animal desperation, frantic, let me out of the house so I can go and scavenge something, or, help me, so that all disappears. But also equally on the other side, the behavior also disappears because the gut-brain axis, right? So 80% of the messages going between the two are coming from the gut up to so when the microbiome's out of whack because the nourishment's not correct, then the head is being messed up from another source. So there's the emotional component of survival and what do I need to do and deciding what to, right? There's the cognitive, the brain processing side, right? And then there's the it's happening without you having to do anything side, right? Of what are the chemical messages doing that are affecting your behavior. So again, I'm addressing both halves of the behavioral, machinery, if you like, by now having in my toolkit functional regenerative medicine for longevity. So it's enabled me to be better in my practice because I can now address the behavior on two aspects. as well as deal with all the other physiological things. And again, if I focus, it's like I have a choice. I can either focus on helping your pet live longer, right, with a great quality of life, right? We're not talking about long suffering, right, but longer, and you'll automatically be largely protected from all these diseases because they just go together. Or I can be helping you build up this amazing shield of armor, this immune system, this optimization, and protect you from all those threats and diseases, and you will automatically then have a pet who lives longer. Like, they just are intrinsically connected, so it doesn't matter which way I focus, you get the double benefit. So I love it because it just gives so much back to the animal.
So takeaway of today is that you are not a holistic vet. You are a longevity zoologist, a cognitive ethologist. Dr. Zoolittle, your name comes from the fact that you listen. I mean, in a unique way. You listen to what the animals need, and you're supporting their whole health. And the kind of, any animal can benefit from your support, but specifically through the lens of prevention and supporting the whole body. So questions about, specific herb for that and specific herb for that, you probably know you know a lot of this stuff, but you're really focused on the bigger picture. So for folks listening, that is who Dr. Zoolittle is. And I truly think that if folks can understand that, they can actually get more benefit from you, because there is no one else doing what you do. So that's it for today's rant.
You can now write my biography because you understand it all.
I love it. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. Subscribe on YouTube if you're loving these lives. We come at you twice a week with all kinds of rants, discussions, and otherwise what I think are interesting conversations. So see you guys tomorrow.